Okay, we're live. John and I were just sitting here talking, and we were already digging into some stuff. So this is just another real and raw. So if you're joining us, awesome. You're welcome to put some comments in. But yeah, so we were just kind of talking about. To me, I guess the real and raw, John. I put it somewhere. I think I put it in a description somewhere. It's just, hey, living out our day to day faith,
That's
in
it.
the real and the raw. And so here we are.
Evolving out loud. I love that saying. A friend of mine uses that a lot. Evolving out loud, and really, it's if we don't go there. I heard a saying that says, if you're be willing to heal in public, you don't know who you're healing in private,
That
and
is so true.
you just don't know who is going. Oh my goodness, I needed to hear that today, right?
Yeah.
So that I think that's why we're doing these two, is to just live our lives out loud, um, and see where it lands, because it normally winds up encouraging us, doesn't it, Gil? Afterwards, you're just like, oh my goodness, I was kind of dealing with some stuff in my head. Now I feel better. It's just better getting it out
Yeah.
sometimes. And if you do it live and heal in public by doing that, it makes us more real, legit people. In my view, anyway.
Yeah. To me, it's transparent, and it is, vulnerability. And it's like when any leader of any sort loses their ability to be transparent and be vulnerable, it's like they're kind of just setting themselves up for a fall anyway. So anyway, so here we are, real and raw. I'm trying to share it here. I'm not doing a
Okay,
very good job. Karen
that's
usually
all
does.
right. Maybe I can touch on, while you're doing that, what we just talked about before we got on the
Yeah,
call a little
yeah,
bit. So there's going to be a lot of misunderstandings in life, right? We know that, and it's one of these things to where I'll be the first to say, when I was actively involved in the institutional world of religion, um, I was so adamant about some things. For example, years ago, I was so zealous in certain areas, and there's nothing innately wrong with that, as long as you're not annoying everybody you encounter, like I was doing. But one of the things that I know I was annoying was when somebody wouldn't show up to church on Sunday. There's this particular guy that was a drummer, and he was a good drummer, but he loved football, he loved sports, and his favorite team was playing on Sunday. And I like sports too, but I'm not like a fanatic or anything. I just,
yeah,
you know but he was, and he loved it, and I had a problem with that back then. And I was the lead guy for the prophetic team and all that, and I wanted him there to play the drums while I was doing my prophetic thing. So he wasn't there, and I said, well, where's Joe? And they go, well, he's at home watching football. And I go, well, he's backslidden. I just said it out loud. He's backslidden. And then I was like, I didn't even think anything about it, right? And now when I look back, I feel bad for the old me sometimes. And I go, well, Joe loved God, and so there was a misunderstanding there on my part, because my lens was fogged. I didn't know what I didn't know then. And I had recently, I'm saying that to say that I had a misunderstanding with a I'm not going to give names, but kind of a well-known guy that I had been in a relationship with, just cannot translate or make the curve or awaken enough to see that words like consciousness or frequency or vibration are not relegated to the new age community. They're just terms. That's all
yeah,
they are, terms that describe something, right? And you can put as much Christ in something as you want, but if you say one word to some folks, and that would have been me. That would have been me. I would have been the
oh
guy
yeah,
too. You mentioned frequency or vibration. Oh, you're new. I need to cast that new age demon right out of you, buddy. Kind of thing. That's how I thought. And
yeah,
and when we're afraid of deception, um, then what we're going to do is we're going to offer a resistance energetically and spiritually, that remains on the outside of us, that keeps those truths that God may have wanted to give us in those realms or those circles. They're going to keep them away from us. It's just like the saying, somebody said, I think it was Sean Bowles or somebody said a while ago, it says, you don't have authority with those people you don't love. And there's truth to that. If you don't love them, if you don't genuinely love them, you really have no place to speak into their lives, right? Because there's going to be a resistance there. There just is. And so this friend of mine, I just, I bless him, but it's, I'd be amiss to say it didn't sting a little bit, because, like any relationships that walk away or don't understand or blow you off, it's like, man, the tendency for somebody like me is to go and to want to try to fix it and explain myself till I'm blue in the face. Like, but you don't, I love Jesus. You don't get it, man. I love Jesus. It's just a term. And all that does is offer resistance and creates a block as well. It's not my job to try and fix a misunderstanding, right? That has to come internally from that person. Now, it's one thing to go and try to clear a matter up. That's one thing. But if they've got it in their head to say, Gil, John, you're part of that group, I don't want to hear it. Until you get delivered, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, and I've had people, interesting, because it wasn't until, it might have been a year ago now, but hadn't had anybody not that I offered to be on the show, that I reached out to. Never had anybody say no until I got to one person. I won't mention names, but this person was okay with it until they found out that I had another person on that they didn't like.
Right.
And I'm like, we're supposed to love one another, be known by our love for one another, be able to walk together.
Right.
Doesn't mean we have to agree with one another.
Exactly.
Anyway, it just seemed very, immature in that sense. And yet at the same time, I'll give people credit in the sense that, hey, you got a following, you got a certain following. And if you were seen on, it's just the immaturity overall of the Christian mindset. Because, I can understand that person saying, no, I'm not going to be on there because people are going to see that I'm on and that guy's been on and they're going to associate me with that and blah, blah, blah. But it's just the immaturity of humanity. It's the immaturity of the church, but it's not just the church, it's humanity.
It really is. It really is. And we're afraid of what we don't understand. Right.
Yeah.
And we really get fearful when it comes to being deceived. And I've often said it this way: if I don't have an intimate relationship with Jesus to begin with, and then I wander off and into these other places that have a potential of bringing some kind of a dark entity into my life or darkness or whatever, then I'm kind of asking for it because I've just opened myself up to something that my relationship could not handle. In other words, if I'm not tight, then I won't hear.
Yeah.
If I'm not tight in that way, then I'll just allow something to come in where I'm just not with it in the moment, and with, I think in oneness, here's the game changer with oneness versus separation mindset, which is duality in most denominations. That's their mindset. Oneness says, I've allowed the integration to happen of spirit and soul and body and mind within myself, allowed the integration to permeate so much so through surrender that it just becomes second nature to feel the leads and the prompts when God says, don't go there or go there. And so it's just second nature, like brushing your teeth. But the issue is when you're embedded in a separation doctrinal mindset, then God's out there, God's over there, I'm over here, and it's easy for me to get deceived, kind of thing, because after all, he's way over there or way up there in the sky somewhere. And it couldn't be further from the truth, right? Oneness is the game changer, because it's like, okay, I can walk into a bar, if God leads me to walk into that bar, sit down between two rough looking guys and feel completely at home, because Jesus is at home wanting
Mm,
to love on these guys, right?
yeah.
So that's kind of my take on it right now. I didn't used to think that way because I had a separation mindset.
Well, another thing is I've got a group that we meet once a week right now, and I'm absolutely loving this group because all we're focused on, we just call it the mystery of love group, and our whole purpose is to figure out, and I don't want to say it that way, is to just venture with God into a
Yeah.
realm where we go deeper and deeper into love, looking for what does perfected love look like. And
Cool.
one of the things that we were looking at today, um, yeah, here it is. I just wrote it down. But that one of the things, not that I've reached perfected love, but there are times where we kind of get into that zone, you might say. And when I'm in that zone where I feel like I've reached that place of perfected love, there's four things that I really have a strong sense of in that place. And that is a childlike freedom, just like
Yeah.
nothing, I don't have any restrictions when I'm operating in love.
Yes.
And when I say operating in love and no restrictions, well, that means that if I'm operating in love, I'm not doing things that are going to be opposed to love, period. So
Yeah.
there's this childlike freedom, and then there's the love, obviously, and the joy, and there's a peace. And it's just like, what you're saying, you can walk into a bar and just enjoy yourself at the bar, enjoy those who are there at the bar,
Yeah.
not get carried away, but just share the love of God in everything that you're doing. And again,
That's
I'm
it.
not encouraging anyone who's an alcoholic to go out and
Right.
go to the bar. That's not what we're saying at all. But
Yeah.
just the idea that there's a lot of places you can go and be, and just go there and be there in the freedom of perfected love. I mean, all things are pure to the pure, pure of heart. And so, and again, even that, you put some parameters on that, you know, you
Exactly.
know, let's not get
Yeah.
carried away. But at the same
Right.
time, when we're operating in love, love itself will create a natural barrier of love that's going to keep you from going off the deep end into stupid stuff. Just be blunt.
Yeah. No, it's true, Gil. And it's just like in a natural relationship, like husband and wife or best friends or something. It's really the proximity of that person, of enjoying being around that person, right? When we lose the enjoyment, we start looking for the flaws. And the childlike, I love what you said, being childlike and enjoyment. A child doesn't know anything but play and
Yeah.
how to enjoy themselves when they're in a healthy environment, right?
Yeah.
They'll pick up as a sponge. They'll be stressed out just as much as their parents are, if that's what's going on. But in a healthy environment, I think, the child plays, and then the proximity of the other child playing with them, you get to know every nuance. You get to know every voice inflection. You get to know every part of that person, and it becomes second nature. So how I look at it is kind of like you were saying, it's like I'll know the parameters when I feel that or hear that voice inflection of oneness in me, Christ in me, or if I get that glance, that look when Jesus like, hey, be sure you want to do that? I mean, you're powerful to choose.
Right.
You sure you want to do that? And it's like with my wife, like this shirt. Not everybody's gonna like this shirt, but if my wife loves it, but if she didn't, she'd say, you know what, I have something a little bit better for you, but check this out, right? I'd say, okay, well, my ego could say, I like this shirt. I don't care. I'm going to keep it. Right. Or I could say, oh, really? Awesome. Since you're my best friend and you have something, I trust that.
Yeah.
I trust that parameter, if you will. I trust that. So, yeah, let's bring it on. Let's see what it is. So then she brings me something that's even more colorful, maybe. So, color.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like that with me. It's not the do's and don'ts, the rules and regs anymore. It's more like the nuance of the glance or the inflection, or hey,
Yeah.
you sure you want to down a straight shot, that, remember, you used to have a problem with that. Well, it looked kind of refreshing on a hot day, but yeah, that you're right. You're right. It's not a, hey, don't touch that, which we're
Yeah.
well aware of. But in religion, it is. In
Yeah.
religion, it is.
No,
Right. And
what I
then that's
usually
what makes
feel,
you want to do it more.
yeah, because what I often feel like, the Father or Son or Holy Spirit, whoever's speaking to me, is more of it's more like, do you really want to do that?
Right.
Like when I get that, I'm like, okay, so what's going on? What might happen if I do that? Or I might be able to think about it for myself and just realize, okay, it's not something I really want to do. But hey, just want to say
Exactly.
to everybody watching, we're just hanging out and talking. So feel free to leave a comment or put a question in there. But we're just talking about stuff and
Yeah.
bounce around.
Yeah. And you know what's the beauty of that, Gil? When I used to go get blasted and all that pre Christ, the built in repercussions. So meaning that you will feel like hell the next morning if you have too much to drink.
Yeah.
So where does that come from? That is like a built-in rebuke, right? God doesn't have to chastise you. That is a built-in natural response to something that you put in your body that was toxic.
Yeah.
And that's a built-in life factor on everything. Okay, let's switch gears and get off the drinking thing for a second and talk about when we don't play. That's another one, right? Here's one God's been speaking to me a lot about. When we don't play, we keep the answer at bay. That's what I heard in my spirit just recently today.
Huh.
When we don't play, we keep the answer at bay. And here's why play is so important. Play has a built-in substance called non-resistance. And when we're at play, everything's fluid. Everything in our body, the dopamine effect is there. We have natural hormones working for us. We have serotonin, melatonin going on in us that make us feel good. This is why Jesus referenced so much to being like a child. And he goes, unless you become like a child, you will not see the kingdom inside of you that's already there at work for you. So what is the kingdom? It's alignment, peace, and joy. So it's alignment to what's already been done. And then peace and joy are the byproducts of what it feels like to be at play in the kingdom. So when I'm at play, something happens to release magnetism inside of me or anyone that's at play to automatically start bringing things our way. So the walls of resistance come down, and then that begins to bring an answer. Maybe not like we thought, but it will come in a way that's best for us, right? So say you've been denied something recently, which I have several things, and when I want something, it doesn't come. I'm like, great. My first response is I'm kind of an outspoken guy, and my hands will go over like an Italian. I'll go, great. And then I'll have to catch myself and I'll go, great. I'll go from great to great. Great. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Takes me a minute. It used to take me days, but now it takes me a few, depending on the gravity of what it is, right? So I'll just go, great, 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 great. My wife and I have been talking about, isn't it wonderful? We'll do this thing now. We'll see the end from the beginning, and we'll start imagining ourselves at the end of what we desire, and we'll go, hey, isn't it wonderful that Gil is seeing all of his desires met? Or isn't it wonderful that we get to do this on video? Isn't it wonderful? Now, you're not lying. What you're saying is, it is wonderful that we have technology. It is wonderful. I'd love to see Gil thrive in every area. So we start saying that, and guess what it does? It starts igniting the non-resistance. The walls come down, non-resistance comes up, and then the play starts happening, because what do you do if you see the end result? You play. And you begin to say, okay, I'm having fun. This is joyful. This is playful now. I think I told you this before, but a long time ago, a guy named John Bevere, I think you know who he is, but John Bevere is a guy that just, he goes around prophetic circles. And he was really stressing over a bunch of money, really stressing over it. And God said, I want you to go play. Grab your golf clubs and go play. Just go play. And he said it was within a couple of hours that everything broke loose and started coming in. Now, I could tell you story after story about how this has happened in my life, right? And it's like you said, let go and flow, paddles up, all those things. It's a reminder to say, how can I play today, even if I don't want to? Now, that's the real test, Gil, right? Even if I don't feel like, no, I want to grovel in this bad boy for a minute. I want to sit here and grovel in it because it makes me feel good, because I've been so used to survival mode. I want to be familiar with the feel good and the survival. So I'm going to grovel in this baby. Well, what does that do? It offers more resistance. And then the answer stays away. God's always going to go back to the first thing he said, play.
Yeah.
Play.
Yeah. I mean, it is a frequency. We were talking, in our group today, this perfected love group. And it's just amazing. A lot of people have received prophetic words in the past. And, we probably all have if we've been in the church very long, especially the charismatic side. So we've received all these words, and we take them and we tend to internalize them in the sense that this is a prophetic word that I now have to make come true. And whether it was right on or whether it's not, that's the first question, which, we've all had words that you just know was not correct. And maybe if it's a good word, that it's something you want, but maybe it's not really God's word, that can happen too. And so, for me, it's got to let go of all of it. You have to let go of all of it, because even the good ones that are true, if they're good and true, then they're still going to come. God's just saying, hey, he's just letting you know what's coming. But if it's good and true and you're being obedient and moving forward in it, then it's all a flow. It's that let go and flow. But if you get that word, and especially if you got words that really aren't even correct, and you're out there thinking, I got to make it happen. I got to make it happen. I got to make it happen. You're creating a stress factor and a frequency of negativity in yourself that is just going to work against you. Unless you are able to let that go. Let it go. And when God's ready, he'll bring you the things that you need in order to do it. What you said earlier, we just simply need to align with Father, align with where he's at and what he's doing now. Let go and flow with what he's doing now, rather than just looking for the future of what I think is supposed to happen or what I want to happen. I'm so focused on that I'm missing what's going on right here in the moment. And that's something that the Western world, we get so caught up in.
Oh man. Man, I tell you what, I'll be the first to admit, it's a cultivation, it's a discipline to practice living in the now. And especially if you're a dreamer, you're a visionary, you're a person that can just look 20 years from now and take joy in that. And then you forget, oh, wait a minute, I'm here in the now. I've got to eat my food here. My food is in front of me or whatever. And it's like, nothing wrong with dreaming inherently, right? However, what I've discovered is if it hasn't happened yet, like these prophetic words, then my quote business is to stay out of taking no thought for tomorrow, for such as today. There's enough going on today, in other words,
right,
where I can cultivate this flow that can actually take and start forming and creating the word for tomorrow. And if I keep offering resistance, in other words, by staying in tomorrow in my head, then all I'm going to do is keep pushing that word out further, or I'm going to keep pushing that which I really want out further. And God is so patient. He is so patient. He's like, hey, no problem. If it takes you, till you're 80, that's okay. Just keep your health up, and we'll do this at 80 years old, Caleb or Moses. It doesn't have to be that way, but if you want to do that, then that's fine. However, I kind of like to have something done now. I mean, the disciples got to do the juicy stuff now. They didn't have to wait, 10, 20, 30 years, even though they had words, I'm sure, personal words and things that were going on. However, they got to do the juicy stuff right now. They got to do the miracles. They got to do it all right now. And by the way, just getting to know who this Christ is and was. They knew about him through Torah and all that. However, New Testament hadn't been written yet. They were writing it as they went along. And so I love that. I love the fact that when you let go and flow, what happens is there's this thing that's called heart coherence that begins to take place. And this is scientifically proven. We've talked about this before, but as a reminder for those that haven't heard, is we let go and we drop from this resistance egoic realm when we loosen our grip and we let go of it in order for this to serve the heart arena, the spirit of who we are. This was meant to serve it, not to lead. But when we're holding on, we lead with our head. And when we drop and we let go, then we lead with spirit. And then heart coherence begins to put things in alignment. And that's when kingdom begins to activate and operate inside of us and starts to work for us instead of against us. Remember when Jesus said, when they're with the loaves and fishes, and the disciples are offering resistance by saying, wait a minute, I've been trained to believe that it's going to take a year and a half to work to get all these people fed. And Jesus is like, hold on a minute. There's something called heart coherence. It's where the kingdom lives. It's in you. And if I teach you some things, I'm going to teach you how to let go of that to where you're not so tightly gripped so that you can begin to descend into an ascension. So it's a descension to an ascension. So it's a little bit backwards in the kingdom, right? It's an upside down kingdom. So we descend to ascend, and then he's like, okay, hold on. It's all through gratitude and play. So I'm having fun. I'm gonna stay having fun, and watch the look on these people's faces when we blow their grid of their own conditioning and feed them in a quantum second. And so it's like, Jesus lived in it. So things were popping and happening all the time when he was playing and having fun. And then you stay in heart coherence and things begin to show up. I'm a firm believer now, Gil, through all the deconditioning that's happened in my life and still more to come. I'm a firm believer that this whole thing is all about play in this avatar that we're in, this body, in this thing called the Matrix. And when we play, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And when we play, we have faith that reveals faith. And when we play, it reveals love. I heard a quote saying recently, never start a business without a smile on your face. So what does that mean? If I don't have a smile on my face when I start a business, it means I'm doing it out of survival.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of what you said, I was just kind of writing a few things down as you were speaking. And then I wrote gratitude for the moment. And then you went into the gratitude again. and it's just amazing. It's like when we were sailing in the Caribbean, I was out there for basically a month and just beautiful. But the refrigerator on the boat never did work. We had ordered the part for it and we were supposed to get it just a few days in. And the part came, but it wasn't the right part. So, and I could see that some of the people, we were so focused on the refrigerator. I'm like, so several times I had to keep saying, hey, everybody, take a look around. Take a moment and think about and be grateful for where we're at. The refrigerator works as an ice box too. So we just kept getting ice and it was fine. So it's like, no big deal. We don't need to worry about that. The worry comes for the future of what's going to happen next. And it's you're in the wrong zone. You're already moving ahead and creating thoughts of what will be or what might be. And we can do that for good or bad things. I think the key it's like if you're going to start a business, you do have to have a bit of a plan and so forth. And
Right.
then in what do you want to see the outcome to be? But I think the key is actually in the moment where you're at right now to be able to feel and sense what it's like to have the money that it's going to bring in, to have, whatever goods that it's going to create, just to be able to sense what that looks like, what that feels like right now in the moment, rather than trying to project out what it might be tomorrow or a year down the road or 10 years down the road. But what's it feel like right now as you begin to engage with those things? Because they
Yeah.
are the things that you're going to create alongside with Father. And so it's being
Totally.
grateful for the moment.
Totally, Gil. And you brought up a really, really good point is Amy and I have been really studying more about imagination. We have in the past, but not like we're doing now. And the Bible talks about vain imaginations. Well, there's vain imaginations, and then there's the imagination of God. It's the image of God in us. So he made man in his image. He was imagining what creation would be and had a blast doing it, right?
It's
And
interesting.
so because we're little g's and we are made in his image, then we can imagine things into existence. I'm a real firm believer in that, more than I ever have been, ever.
Absolutely.
And as a man thinks, so is he. So what are you thinking? Are you imagining how the outcome will be, or good? Or are you imagining, oh man, it never works out for me. Oh, it's always going to go this way. Oh man, if I start this, it's going to fail like everything else. And then we go through this programming, and what does that do? Again, it throws a resistance shield outside of us, and then we have to hustle and grind for the provision
Yeah.
instead of letting the earth yield its strength for us. And so the earth man, the earth around us, the earth people around us, that are made of the earth, will yield their strength towards us. And so it's an important thing. Like, imagine. So I did this recently, and this isn't hocus new age stuff, you guys. This is real imagining, because I saw it in my heart first. I imagined, before I went on my trip back to Hawaii, I was imagining two $500 gift cards that would be given to me just as a little extra play money kind of thing, and food money and things like that that was set aside. Okay. And I just thought, it'd be nice to have two $500 gift cards. I don't know where it came from. It just came from the inside of me. It wasn't a vain imagination. Came from in me, and I felt good about it. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm imagining two $500 gift cards, like Visa gift cards, prepaid gift cards. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's the way this is how it's going to come. And then I was like, no, don't determine
Yeah.
the outcome. That is to be left alone.
Yes.
So then I kind of left it. And then I got an email, like a couple days later. I got an email from Southwest Airlines, says win two $500 gift cards. And if you just put an entry in, and I go, well, that's not free, so I'm not doing that, because I had to pay for like a raffle ticket or something.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't do that. But what it was showing me is you're on the right track in your imagination world. Okay. So look for those signs. So then I thought, I dropped it. I left it. And then I get to the airport, and they're looking for volunteers. And I had some time. So they're volunteers to be bumped off that flight to go on another one. And guess what the prize was? $500 gift card. So I said, okay, sure, I'll take that one. Got the first one. And I thought, you know what? I wonder if the second one's coming. So I framed it up and I imagined it, and I said, okay, I'm just going to sit here and be at peace. Another one. I want another one. Sure enough, I got bumped off the second one, and they asked me, do you want this? You can be on the flight, but we'll give you the $500 gift card anyway. So I said, yeah, I want it. I got time to kill. So I got my two $500 prepaid Visa cards, by the way. I think they were MasterCards. So what is that saying is that it's an experiment. It's an experiment to say, first of all, imagine it. That's prayer, by the way. Imagination can be prayer.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
when you imagine or pray, believe that you've already received it and you will have it. Now, the part we leave alone is when and how and what. So the when and how and what exactly is it can be, it could be a variety of things. Leave them alone, drop it, leave it alone, and just thank the Lord. Smith Wigglesworth said one thing. He goes a long time ago. He said, if I pray 7 times for any one thing, I've prayed 6 times in unbelief. So you look at it, you pray it, drop it, walk about your day and play. And then things begin to pop and happen. But what do? In our conditioning, we worry, we decree, we command. I command the devil to let go of those 2 $500 gift cards right now. That kind of thing. Loose it, devil. That stuff I used to do a long time ago. And I go, like, well, what does that have to do with anything? If I pray and the devil wants to grab my $500 gift cards, well, guess what, buddy? They're coming in a different way. You're not going to stop them from coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Otherwise, he's more powerful than God. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm rambling on, but.
Well, hey, there's somebody has a question. It's a little off course for us. Well, actually, it's not. It's what you were talking about earlier. You want to look at it? Here we go.
Sure.
It says, I'm massively conditioned and slowly trying to break free. I know Marilyn. I've talked to her on the phone. It says, I do have a question. I don't recall the scriptures really showing Jesus's humanity and the play you're speaking of. So I don't know if you have anything in that arena, because I don't know that the scriptures actually say that, but go ahead.
Yeah, here's the thing that I would offer, Marilyn, is sometimes, and I'm not saying this to you because I don't know you, but I'll just say what happened to me in my life real briefly in relation to this question is I found that because of how I was conditioned, I found that I had to have a scripture for everything good coming into my life. And then I discovered that oneness was the word, the person of Christ in me. And he began to speak to me things like, hey, I want you to have that new iPhone. And I'm like, where's the scripture for that? My conditioning would say, where's the scripture for that? Well, there's no scripture about iPhones that I know of, right? And I've read the Bible many times. But what he was saying is oneness says, I'm in relationship with you. I want you to have this good thing. Now, if you want to look at play specifically, look at how many references Jesus made about children.
Yeah.
The number one thing a child will do is what? Play.
Yeah.
If it's a toddler, if it's a child, they will play. And so I think when you read the word, the person of the word inside of you in oneness, because we have been made one with him. Remember John 17. I pray that you are one, that as my Father and I are one. What was he saying there? I want you to have the revelation. I want you to have the consciousness, be awakened to realize that you're already one with me. I in you, you in me, Christ in you, the hope of glory. And so to have a certain scripture, we could pull some out of the hat, I guess. However, I would just say that when we have intimacy, you're going to hear the whisper of God inside of you that says, I want you to play. And then I can pull out the scientific reasons why it's good, the medical reasons why play is good. The laughter is like a medicine. You can go, into other ones. The joy of the Lord is my strength. So really, I'd like to know a little bit more of what you're really asking there. That would kind of help. So if you want to follow up while Gil's answering too.
Yeah. Well, and as you were saying that, I'm just thinking, and these are maybe not to the point exactly, but obviously everything that Jesus did is not written in the Bible. The Bible even says that.
Exactly.
The other thing I would look at is Jesus was a child, and I can't imagine him having a childhood where he didn't play. And I just can't imagine him being a real human being and running around with 12 other guys and not having a good time here or there, It's just,
exactly.
He's a human being. He's a person. He's demonstrating, what it's like to be, a person, a live and perfect person, So
Yeah.
anyway, I just can't imagine that he didn't play. It would have been nice if they'd put some of those playthings in the Bible, but I would imagine just this a little bit more stoic back in the day, and had to make sure that everything that was written, which writing something back then was not as easy as it is today, obviously, that what was
Yeah.
written was what they thought was important at the moment, at the time. Yeah.
Right. And Gil, and just to kind of top that off, it's like, think about what religion does to us.
Yeah.
It made me a crotchety dude. I mean, it made me just kind of mean. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, if I'm mean, how is that the fruit of the spirit?
Right.
And so then I looked at the fruit of the spirit like it was wimpy, like you have to be a wimpy person. I actually thought this at one point in my life. I thought, well, that's wimpy stuff. Give me the fire of God, give me the judgment stuff, because of the prophet calling on my life. And I was being told that it was all about that stuff. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, God's trying to give me some joy here.
Yeah.
And it's, if joy is a part of the fruit of the spirit, then that is fun. And it's play. All 9 elements, if you look at them from the perspective of oneness, being one with Christ, all 9 are elements of play, even patience. Because when you're in love, when you're absorbed and saturated in love and in joy and in peace and in goodness and in long suffering, when you're in all of those 9 elements, against such there is no law of meanness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking about it the other day. It's like kind of evil versus bad, or good versus evil, or light versus darkness. It's like the fruit of the spirit is all your light. And so
It
if you're
is.
just enjoying life and walking in that light, then you're going to have joy. And I used to joke around and just say, most people think the verse reads that the seriousness of the Lord is our strength, that we got to just really,
Yeah.
And that's the way, most leaders are, unfortunately. A lot of people think they have to be that way, when in reality, I think it's the ones that just have again, that freedom, that childlike freedom, love, joy, and peace. Childlike. I think we're hitting it on the nail on the head when we are able to operate in that place and from that place, not worried about what other people think, but you're just enjoying yourself, and you're enjoying everything around you. And again, always parameters. I feel like I have to say that anymore because people take stuff out of context, but
I know.
it's like, I'm sorry, but sometimes I just want to say, are you stupid? That's not what was intended at all. And if you really listen to what we've been talking about, you would know that. But this is the real and raw. So that's why just sometimes that thought crosses my mind. It's like, how could you think that we meant anything like what people come up with sometimes? But there are areas where people do feel like they. Well, I can understand. A lot of people think that Adina and I are pretty passive, that we're just passive, just let go and flow. Like, no, man, if you understand it, if you really understand what's happening when you let go of your stuff and your expectations, and you flow, the flow is the grabbing onto or diving into the river where Father's doing something. And that's where you're going. And you'll get 1,000 times more stuff done, whatever it is God wants to do, than you can on your best day trying to do your stuff. So I'd rather let go of my stuff and do what He's doing. And that way I'm also in His purpose and His flow. And it's such a beautiful place to live. I'm not there 100% of the time by far.
No,
but, great
none
place
of us
to be.
are. None of us are. And Gil, how your body feels. See, we're told in religion not to pay attention to how we feel, feeling and emotions, because those will lead you astray. I have discovered it's really quite the opposite, because God gave us emotions and feelings for a reason. And so when we pay attention to how our body feels when we let go. How does it feel when you let go? You feel relieved, right?
Yeah.
You feel relieved. You feel a sense of joy, a sense of peace. And when you tune into that, and you discipline yourself, if you want to call it that word, to see that and respond more quickly each time.
Yeah.
Like, instead of waiting for the delay of letting go, I tell you, things begin to pop and move more frequently, and then the flow begins to happen. People forget we've been bought with a price,
Yeah.
and we're not our own anymore. And what that means is that I can egoically trudge through life and get some stuff done. I can do that. I am
Yeah.
powerful to do that by free will, right? Or I can let go and watch time collapse and work for me twice as fast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we don't know what we don't know. It's like the business deal's around the corner for all you business people, but you keep trying to slug it out and hustle it out by trying to position yourself and jockey for position. And what does that do?
Yeah. There was a time where I had a business, and I was making, my company was bringing in over $1 million a year. I made $2.5 million in 2 years. And I
Wow.
was slamming it, man. And that's the thing, is my personality. I'm great at just slamming it and making it happen, just pushing it to the wall and making everybody miserable.
Guilty.
And so, I love where I'm at now, and I want to sink deeper into the place of love, joy, and peace, where I get to enjoy the fruit while also enjoying the moment, and not be just making me miserable and everybody else around me by pushing and trying to make things happen. I'd rather flow and let go and flow with what Father's doing.
Oh,
So
man.
Marilyn commented back here. She says, I guess I look at the spiritual life of Jesus as all serious and in depth. And I definitely was in that same camp. I absolutely was in that same
Yeah.
camp. Says, I'm sure the issue lies with me. Point well made about the children. And I'll just say my own experiences in the heavens. Oh, man. So this was
Yeah.
one of the memories I have engaging with Father in the heavens is I just kind of had this myopic view. So I couldn't see the whole picture. Had this myopic view, and all I could see was Father God was kicking me. Wow, I almost want to cry.
Let go and flow, Gil.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. But it looked like he was kicking me, and from my childhood, it's like, yeah, that just brings that stuff back,
Yeah.
and yet then he says, no, look further out, get the bigger picture. And so as it focuses out, what I did with my kids when they were little is they would run around. I'd lay on my back on the floor, and they'd get on my, and I'd have my knees up, and they'd sit on my feet, and I would kind of kick them. It was more of a push, but I'd kick them, and I'd hold onto their arms, and they'd flip over, and they'd land on, above my head. And they just loved it, and they'd come back around, and they'd do it again. Well, Father was doing that with me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just playing.
Playing.
That's all I'm doing.
I would, what I almost feel like doing is I just, and maybe the Lord will lead into this, but I almost, want to go around and just have play conferences, like play meetings, to just get mindsets out of this, and because I am totally guilty, Gil, of the same. I was this serious prophet guy, and I'd come in and I'd be just, quote, discerning everything in the room, and I had a friend of mine tell me once, that more of a seasoned prophet at the time, he came to me and he goes, us prophets, we size each other up when we walk in a room, don't we? And I looked at him and I go, God, I hope not. And then I wound up doing it. And it's like, and that was all serious business, because after all, if you're a prophet, you have to bring the word of the Lord, and it better be razor sharp, right on, or we're going to stone you. It better be right on, and it better be about the earth going to hell in a handbasket. Never mind how things are getting better. Literally, things are getting better. Tell me if they're not getting better by looking at our medical world versus the 1800s. Tell me if they're not getting better by having a plane to fly in rather than going in a boat across the oceans. Tell me if, the list goes on and on, right?
Well, even poverty, since you bring that up, I was just watching a podcast yesterday or the day before, and pointing out, they did surveys, and most people, again, it's humanity humanity needs to mature to where we begin to look at the positive, not the negative.
That's
Or
right.
I should say, get focused on the positive and not the negative, because I think that like 90% of the people said poverty is getting worse, when the true reality is that poverty, I think in the last 100 years, has been reduced by 50%
Wow.
worldwide. So it's just like, I'm writing a book. I've got 4 chapters written of my book called Choice. And it's
Yay.
the power of choice, and that power of choice is the next most powerful thing in the universe next to God, because he
Totally.
gave it to us. He gave it to us, and it gives us the right and the ability to resist him forever. And doesn't mean
Love
we
that.
will, but it gives us the right and the ability. So in that, I'm writing, and now I forgot my point.
Things getting
Well,
better.
yes. Well, and it's the focus. It's how humanity focuses on the negative. It's like,
Right.
if humanity matured and we got to a place where we were just sick and tired of all the negative and the negative frequencies that are going on and all the drama, and we're like, no, we want the good, we want the positive. You know what would happen with the news and all the television shows and everything? If they want to continue in business, they'd have to flip. They have to go
Exactly.
from focusing on all the drama and the negative, they'd have to flip to the positive. But they're doing what they're doing because humanity wants it.
That's
That's
right.
what right now humanity is looking for. And it's like, that's why I don't watch the news. I don't watch
Yep.
TV. I want no part of it. It's just not, and on YouTube, I can choose what I want to watch.
That's
I'm
right, man.
looking for the people who are optimistic, who see, the brighter side of things. And I am looking at also some of the stuff that, can be a little bit negative, but I'm looking for the people that aren't, doomsdayers. I want to know, hey, what do we need to be aware of? But I'm
Right.
not interested in doomsday stuff. I'm just like, it's not any good.
Well, I'm with you. I mean, Paul wouldn't have said to think on these things if he would have said,
Right.
think on these things, but watch CNN or watch Fox, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, the fruit of the Spirit is not negative. The fruit of the Spirit, who, by the way, Holy Spirit says, I will grow you and mature you and expand you in these things. So there's a focus there for a reason. And I found that the more I focus my attention on these things, the more I am current in my news antenna, because
Yeah.
I'm hearing from heaven. And
Yeah.
heaven is the most current news there is. And so somebody might say, and they've told me this before, it was like, well, you got your head in the sand if you're not watching Fox News 12 hours a day. No, no, what I do is I've saved my spiritual life by
Yeah.
not watching any news. And if I do see a news blurb on my phone or something, I'll check in maybe once in a great while to see, okay, what's kind of going on. And then I almost want to throw up my mouth anyway. So what's the point? The point is that if we want to be in the in group, you have to be political now in certain
Yeah.
circles in the
Yeah.
church. And what's happened there is that it's almost like a pharisaical spirit, Gil. You know that. It's almost like you become mean. You become
Yeah.
mean and
Oh, yeah.
nasty.
Yeah. And it's the
When you're
same in the
out.
religious realm. I mean, if
Yeah.
you have the spirit of religion, it's going to come out mean and nasty. And that's, I'm not, yeah. I feel for those people who come on, Facebook and just have to hammer me and blast me for my position of the love of God. I'm like,
Yeah.
here's a Christian who's supposed to be representing the God of love. And they
Right.
are blasting me, telling me how I'm going to go to hell because I'm talking about God's love in a way that they
I
just can't
know.
accept. It's like, no, that is too loving. You can't do that. I'm like,
I know.
okay, what's
I
wrong with this
know.
picture?
I had an older prophet in a prophetic meeting once come up, and I'm prophesying these beautiful things over people that I knew that God wanted to say, because they were all sourpusses sitting in there just scowling at me. And the Lord said, I want you to just spread the love.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, what do you want to say? And just open your mouth and I'll say it. So I said it. And then this guy walks over to me real slowly. And I just knew everything in me what he was going to prophesy over me. So he goes, okay, I'm the seasoned prophet in the group, and John's the younger one, and I'm the older one. So we need to kind of set some things straight. And John, the Lord says you're too nice.
Are you
And I
serious?
go,
This happened?
yeah, no, I mean, I'm not joking at all. So he said, God says you're too nice. And I wanted, everything in me wanted to just stand up and walk out. But I stood there and took it in the name of taking the higher road. Nowadays, I just say, excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom. And then, there's something. I would do something to just leave because I don't want that stuff thrown up on me.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You got to go to the bathroom to get away from the potty language.
so he goes, John, you're too nice. And the whole time I didn't hear anything else he said after that. I just heard, John, you're too nice. So then the Lord was smiling and kind of chuckling on the inside of me. I saw his face just smiling. He goes, isn't that something? Too nice. And you know what the word nice actually means? It means kind. So he goes, he's having this dialogue with me internally while he's prophesying over me. So isn't this funny? Jesus is talking to me while he's supposedly talking for Jesus on the outside of me. How does that work? I don't know. But nevertheless, he's Jesus is saying, nice translates as kindness, and kindness is the fruit of the Spirit. So you're better off in my camp being nice, John.
Yeah.
And it's not to say Jesus, somebody, I could just hear somebody saying, well, Jesus wasn't nice when he turned over the tables and he went in and cleaned house and called them brood of vipers and all that. But remember who he was saying that to? Religious people.
Yeah.
Religious, and doing it to really, it wasn't the sinner that didn't know any better. And I don't even like saying that word anymore, sinner. I mean, these are God's people made in his image. Why do we label people? And that's a whole nother subject, but
Yeah. Yeah.
Sinners, Jezebels, and all that stuff. Whenever I hear that, it makes my skin crawl because it's like what you're speaking and what you're saying is out of your own conditioning, because God is not going to go around calling people Jezebels. I'm sorry. He's just not going to do it. Not in a new covenant environment. Now, we may have a controlling issue, but go tell a woman that's been burned, had 3 husbands leave her, and she's been abused, and she's hurting, and go call her a Jezebel and see how that heals her. That's not going to heal her. Well, we got to cast it out of her, John. No, she needs love. A listening ear is going to go further than you trying to cast some Jezebel spirit out of her that may not even be real in the moment. I'm getting off on a pet peeve now. But back to the nice thing, Gil, how much have they hammered Joel Osteen? I mean, they crucify this guy, Joel Osteen. They crucify him, right?
Yeah.
And he's the nicest guy. Well, and he even said, my calling is to encourage people. That's what he said that many times. My calling is to encourage people. Well, can you have a calling like that? Can you have a calling to be a nice guy? Well, of course you can. Of course you can. Look at Aunt B on
The Andy Griffith Show.
What is it called?
Andy Griffith Show. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. No, it's I think that is one of the things that gets in my craw, if you want to say it that way. I don't like that term, but anyway, it gets me when people get upset, when Christians get upset about the idea of an all-powerful, all-loving God, and they just flip out. And the thing is, they'll say, oh yeah, God's all powerful and God's all loving. But when you start pointing out what that really means, then they get bent out of shape, and it's just totally bizarre. And anyway, so, we pray for those people. We continue to just extend love to them, because that's the only way that they're really going to get to see the love of God, because unfortunately they're stuck in a religious mindset that is actually tormenting. You and I have both been there, and I do not want to go back to that. It is a tormented place to be. And I guess my heart and my calling is I want to see people set free from that.
Yeah. So, yep. Same here. I walked around with a foreboding spirit all the time. And I would venture to say that most prophetic people do. Foreboding, like the end of the world is here every moment. Like, when's it all going to collapse? And do we have a future? And, the devil's after me, that kind of thing. look at an intercessor's face in religion, and I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying it's real, because I used to be the head of intercession for years back in the 90s. And I probably looked, when I was in my late 20s, I probably looked like I was 50, because it ages you. It really does age you. And what we're trying to do here is to convey a different way, you guys. It's to say that Gil and I are living this out loud. Are we flawless? Are we perfect? Of course not. We're walking through junk all the time. And most of that junk, I can say, is in my subconscious arena, through programming and conditioning that says, this is the way, walk in it. No, it's not the way, walk in it. The way to walk in it is consciousness, living in the present moment with Christ consciousness. And that's real living. We weren't really living, were we? We thought we were.
Yeah. I can't even really think of words to express it or explain it, but well, part of it I can is performance. My main thing was I had to perform to look good for God and to look good for all the people. And I had to be impressive. And so I had to measure up, just all of that stuff. And so I had to be very serious about my work. And yeah, no joy, that's for sure. I mean, well, it might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but for the most part, no, I felt like like Marilyn, what Marilyn shared is like, man, I was right there thinking that, Jesus was somber and very strict and very, very deep. And that's the way I had to be. So yeah, I wasn't much fun at all to be around. And yeah, I very legalistic.
Same here. And that was spirituality, right, to us. And I just thought of what does the world what does the world see? And you wonder why they go to other religions. They go to, deep new age stuff, And it's true. It's like anything, any sect, SECT, any sect of Christianity will have its own quirks and its own isms to say this is the way, walk in it. But if it doesn't bottom line it in love, joy, and peace, then there stands a good chance there's some conditioning and programming surrounding that needs to be dismantled or deprogrammed. Because if it's not, look, what is the goal? Love, right? The highest goal is love. If I have not love, if it's a clanging cymbal, we know all the scriptures, right? But in reality, if we're not living it, we're not very enjoyable people to be around.
Yeah.
We're really not. We have agenda, or it's ego, or it's both, or it's like, get away from me because you're going to spill a demon off on me or whatever. I mean, that was in my circle. The charismatic prophetic circles was everything's a demon.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. If you make it, it will be, because what you focus on, you will attract.
Yeah, you'll empower it. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, play is the key. Play is the name of the game for me.
Yeah, I like that. And well, I'm going to have to wrap it up here, but John, always fun. It's fun because you and I got on and we started talking like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to hit the broadcast button here.
Because it gets interesting right out of the gate when you're awake.
Right.
When you're awakened, we're still awakening all the time, but when you're awakened to a certain level, you hit the ground running, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationship, but you grind it out, and you have to have courtesy talk when you're religiously asleep, right? Everything's courtesy talk.
Yeah. No, anyway. Very true. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and blessings to everyone. And John, stick around. I'll talk to you a little bit more before I gotta go.
All right.
Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.